We still do 7 NUFC Matters shows for free a week. But if you want to support the channel, there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast or video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications option. Hit the thanks button to buy a super sticker. You can do this on the live chat too. You can also join our Patreon page or buy us a coffee at the link in all of our video descriptions below. We are also looking for sponsors. If you want our latest advertising rates and how you can get involved, then email John at nufcmatters1892@gmail.com. Thanks for watching. The return of the Entertainers is a walking football match that takes place at Gateshead Leisure Centre on Saturday the 6th of June 2026 in aid of Age UK North Tyneside. Sponsored by Shout Digital and Darren Baldwin Funerals. Tickets available from our website or from Voucher. There's also an opportunity for you to play in the game, either with or against the legends. Go to our website nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk for more details. 29th of January 2027 sees an evening with Beardsley, Cole and Ferdinand at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House, hosted by John Gibson. Tickets are on sale now from the box office 0191 243 1171 or tynetheatreandoperahouse.uk or directly from us at our website. Northern Horizon is a Blake 7 convention in aid of Age UK North Tyneside. Tickets available from our website. And Rebel Base Northeast, the Star Wars fan convention, Sunday the 2nd of August at the Copthorne Hotel. Tickets available on our website. The Craze, Fred Dinage, Ronnie, Reggie and Me takes place at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House, box office 0191 243 1171 or tynetheatreandoperahouse.uk. That takes place Wednesday the 11th of November at 7:30. We've also got some books available on our website. Will Scott's popular Entertainers book, 92 to 97, Kevin Keegan's Legacy, is available now. And The Promoter and the Photographer, 25 years of bringing the stars to Tyneside, all proceeds going to Age UK. All books available, nufcmatters.co.uk.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you, you're the only thing that makes us all believe.
Good morning, welcome to NUFC Matters. It is another episode of the highly anticipated and I would say much loved Ask Joe.
Nice introduction to start me day.
Good to see you, mate. And as always, it's over to the panel of questions from people out there. And we start actually with a big thank you to Darren and Gary, our roving reporters in the chat, who have been feeding back the information from an interview which has just taken place on Talk Sport with our chief executive. And a rather interesting soundbites coming from David Hopkinson. I mean, ultimately, he's basically said the PIF are committed to the club and they are continuing to spend on all projects from their perspective. They are still challenging on all fronts in 2030. They're still behind the club and they're looking at the summer. David Hopkinson says he shares the same views as Amanda in trying to win the Champions League and the Premier League. He said that Ross Wilson is trying to get the building blocks in place and let's see what the summer brings. And Gary says he's also excited by the challenge of kicking through the glass ceiling and challenging the higher revenue clubs because football and spending is all about revenue. I don't know about you, George. I'm underwhelmed, really, by all of this. And I genuinely feel that this is literally just sound bites for sound bites' sake. He knows how disappointed the supporters are from our perspective. Another transfer window with nobody in and one person out, of course, Jamal Lascelles, a player that hasn't really featured under Eddie Howe in the last couple of seasons. But he knows how underwhelmed fans are. Lack of sponsorship, lack of a new training ground, no direction really announced yet on what we're doing with the stadium, whether we're actually staying or whether we're not. And at a time when Eddie Howe has come out yesterday at the press conference for me and bizarrely said that we were never going to spend in this window. That's after the first couple of weeks of saying it's a fluid window. It's a window that could change day to day depending on injuries. Now, forgive us for being, am I wrong here? But we have had injuries. We've had bad injuries to the back four, and we're threadbare at certain positions in the back four, and we continue to be. Livramento is out until March. We know how much of a struggle it is to get back to fitness. Let's say April for him, really, before he regains anywhere near his best. That's as long as he doesn't have any setbacks. And then Fabian Shaw is out. He's not going to be back until the back end of the season either. That's a defensive crisis, whether you like it or not. It is a crisis. And we haven't bought anybody. We've let a defender go, for God's sake. And we were only looking for an incoming of Matt Targett, recalling Matt Targett. It wasn't good enough when we let him go to Borough. He's a championship player at best now. And that kind of feedback we're getting, I just don't think it's any good. Darren says, Jim asked the CEO about the stadium. We can be bigger, but no decisions have been made on the stadium or staying put. He'd like to increase the stadium to 65,000. 10 to 15,000 is what he's looking at increase. So there we are. We're getting more and more information as we're coming. But look, I'm underwhelmed by all of that, and I haven't listened to it. Steve Hastie's just messaged us to say he sounds very like Todd Bowley at Chelsea. That's what he sounds like, and that's not just because he's American.
Oh,
but yeah, what's your feelings, George, on that for starters before we get into the viewers' questions?
The simple answer for me, Steve, is how much further are we on from Amanda? We're not, are we? Simple as that. We've achieved in 4 years quite a lot, winning a trophy, etc. But on the day-to-day things, we've gone into this almost a cocoon in terms of information. It's no better, and we're into another CEO now, and he's had his 100 days, his big review. Have we heard anything about that? Really, I don't think we have, and it's that lack of day-to-day information that fans live on, instead of it being left to the rumor mill. And in this modern age, it was always like that before. I mean, remember when Seymour was the manager? There was always rumours in the Chronicle and all the papers, and Seymour used to have to come out and fight them back. But you used to get that odd day-to-day stuff in the local press. Now you don't get it. So what happens? The keyboard warriors get it and turn it into negatives. All this stuff about Piff walking away and all the rest of it. It wouldn't happen if we were being kept in the loop, and that is disappointing to me as well. So, it's we aren't 100 miles further forward. We're solid in terms of the financial backing of the club and so on. And take Jamal Lascelles. Now, there's a young man who really gave the club a lot. You know, he was captain at 22, thanks to Rafa, and Rafa had spotted something in the lad that was worthwhile, and he's done great service for us. Well, if he's fit enough to go to Leicester to play football, I'm not sure he wouldn't be. You know, when you look at some of the things that have been happening recently, he would do a shift for us. And as you say, do we really want Mac Target back? I'm sorry, I don't particularly. He did a job when he came, but that's it. He's moved on, and I would just let him move on. It's as simple as that. So we're back to the same thing of the crumbs off the table in terms of information. Nothing real. I mean, I have a view about the big stadium, and that is that the new stadium, and that is the reason it's slowed down is I've heard people blaming the council and blaming this and blaming that. I think it all rests in Saudi Arabia. That it's what the chairman wants, what the board wants, what they want for the club. They keep telling us they want us number one, so obviously they're going to want a number one stadium as well. Well, tell me that. Let's have some of that. It's a bit frustrating to say the least. And going back, we're still in terms of fans, and certainly in terms of myself, we're still missing an Amanda figure. I hoped it would change with this new CEO, but it hasn't. He's, as I say, we're getting the crumbs off the table instead of the chunks of meat that we want to get our teeth into and can rest on and move forward. At the moment, it's quite, in a sense, it's quite worrying because where we're going, and I'm not sure people know the answer to that. Yes, we've won a trophy, and yes, they've made an advances in 4 years, but suddenly it's come to a shudder and halt. And as I say, we're instead of getting a nice chunky bits of meat off the table in information, we're just getting the crumbs. And it sounds as though this interview with the new CEO is just adding more to the pile. It's not taking it forward at all.
No, Gary's also said it's about AI growth through personally targeted advertising, apps that allow more interaction and sales, global reach, which is another thing which he's mentioned about it as well. And Dave saying it's interesting here. We were actually active in the window, just couldn't get the right deals done. Now, is that what Hopkinson said? Because if that's the case, then that again, it's at loggerheads with what Eddie's actually saying. Eddie's saying that we weren't active. So I don't know. Darren also said that Eddie's got targets. He knows his targets, but Hopkinson hasn't said what the target is, if it's Champions League next season or whatever. Jim White is also asking, is Eddie the right man up to 2030 to tick all the boxes that they have set? I don't know. And it really is bizarre to hear those kind of things. And another thing, obviously, that hit the newspapers, I've just seen in the chat there, Gary was talking about Zarbi, bizarrely linked with Newcastle when no business was going to be done. The Chronicle now running a story tonight to say that Zarbi's signed a pre-contract with Paris Football Club, so he's got no intention of coming to Newcastle. So who fed Craig Hope that story for him to put that story out there as fact, when it couldn't be further from the truth? So, has Craig Hope been sold a dummy there by somebody behind the scenes? It sounds like it. Very, very confusing, that whole scenario as well.
And I, like some of the other people that go on social media, the PSR stories wearing thin now. I'm not a financial genius, wouldn't pretend to be. But anybody that can do simple monetary calculations knows that we got nearly 150 million for Isak. People keep talking about 125, but it was 147 we got for Isaac because we made them pay for his bonuses. And it's only the pro-Liverpool press that don't tell you that. And then add on to that the prize monies and things like that have come in. Money shouldn't have been an issue, in my opinion, this window. And yet, more than once, Eddie had, I just read something this morning that he was talking about, that PSR came rattling back again to say how it was, we had to be careful and all this sort of thing. I don't buy that anymore, I'm afraid. I think there's more to it than that. And if, as the CEO is saying, that they're saving all their pennies for the summer, well, they better have a blinking good summer because otherwise, people are just going to get fed up. It's going to be hard to divert all the negative stuff that will come their way because we're not seeing anything. And as I say, we now got a new CEO who's I hate to use the word platitudes. Well, they are platitudes because there's no substance to them. There's no substance. Yes, he says he won 65,000 stadium, but and isn't prepared to commit to where or we're moving now, we're staying where we are, or is something else happening? It just is pie in the sky at the moment. And
more pie in the sky coming from Darren Lee's. He's repeating these. Bruce is on as well, apparently. CEO expecting the club to win the Premier League by 2030. You're having a laugh, Darren. You cannot be that cannot be serious. Surely to God, is he crazy? With the current setup we've got, there's no chance. I really will be surprised if we were anywhere near it. The CEO asked if Sandro's agent is shopping him around. Hopkinson says he's got no idea, but he believes Sandro is happy at the club. Well, be prepared for a shock, I'm afraid, because when the summer comes, we're going to struggle to keep a hold of them. For me, I genuinely don't think that's possible. Gary says the positive spin I'm trying to convince myself of is Hopkinson is highly regarded and is known for achieving results wherever he's been. Would he have come here to be a yes man? Yeah, but you could say the same about the previous incumbents of the seat under this ownership. It's all it all sounds great until they get here, and then it doesn't seem to be what's said on the tin. None of them seem to be happy. Football directors, sporting directors.
The previous CEO, for example, was full of it and came with quite a reputation. If you look what he did in America, it was quite impressive. But I think I've said more than once on here, the minute I seen him on the stage at the Stack singing the Bladen Races, he might as well have left for me because we've already had one of them. We don't need another one. Goodbye, and that's how it panned out. Mitchell walked in with an incredible reputation as sporting director wherever he's been. First thing I did was to look at his background. And here we've got a guy who's supposed to be the best in the business. He'd never worked in a job for more than 3 years, and he's come to a club that's got a 5-year plan. How do you make those bits of arithmetic work? And they didn't. And he walked in, and the first thing he did was upset his manager, talking about his team. His team will play this way. His team will play that way. Forgetting, of course, that we've got a manager whose team it is really, it's not now a rumor, it's fact that he spoke more to the manager of the ladies team than he did Eddie Howe, which is, goodness gracious, it's just awful. And all of that doesn't get any better when I listen to what's been said this morning by the new CEO.
Steve Hasty's just messaged us with a final recap, and he just said that they're still looking at the data over Wissa's knee injury before fully assessing last summer's spending. He goes over the Tonali situation, which we've already discussed. He did finish off by saying that Tonali isn't the only player that other clubs eye. He deflected the Isaac Farrago by saying that he only watched it from a distance as he didn't start until the post It didn't start his pause until the window closed. And Voltamada is a great acquisition, he says. 10 years' time is too long a plan. It's a 5-year plan at Newcastle with a strategic timeline to consistently move on towards winning the league by 2030. That's a direct quote, and that's a short synopsis of the last 15 minutes. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Darren. And thank you to Gary for doing that. Okay, let's get into the questions. We've took 20 minutes up discussing that. There was a few questions that come in. Stephen Kennedy was the first by email. George, having watched my first game in 67, I've been caught up in a love affair that lasted nearly 60 years, and it's been like a full-on relationship with its ups and downs, more downs and ups, but your first love is your first love, and you're prepared to take the lows so you can enjoy the highs. Now, when Trashley left and the PIF took over, I thought, roll on the good times. The kids have left home and it's our time to enjoy life. And boy, did it start well. Good manager, good players joining, good football. All is good in the world. But lately, the relationship seems to be going stale. We aren't progressing at the rate we started at. And now this season in particular, we seem to be making the same mistakes on and off the field. We, the fans, can see this. We aren't stupid. We know our hands are tied financially, but surely the club as a whole should be able to put things right on the field. Good players don't become bad ones overnight. Eddie seems to be no mug. So why do I get angry in every game when it's the same old story every game? How can we get out of the rut, George? Where do you see a short-term fix to the problem? And am I wrong to be angry at the same old mistakes time and time again? From a very confused and annoyed Toon fan, Stephen Kennedy.
No, Steve, you're not wrong to be angry. I get quite disappointed as well. And I'm into 80 years of support. I saw my first game in 1945, for God's sake, and over that time, things have I've seen everything, and there's very little that's new. I've got to tell you. For example, in the 50s, when we the 3 times we won the cup. In my household, where I lived, with uncles and grandfathers and other members of the family, all arguing fiercely that I had given the league away to win the cup. Particularly in the early ones, the Arsenal and the Blackpool Cup finals, they were in a position to win the league, and they fielded weakened teams in the league so that we fit for the cup. And Seymour tilted his hat at the cup because that's where the money was. There wasn't any money in winning the league. So all of this is not new, and it's all very frustrating. The things about managers as well. We've had some rare kerfuffles about managers taking over, not taking over. So you're right to be disappointed and indeed angry. This season's been difficult for me because, as I often have said on this platform and on others, that if the right Newcastle turns up, we can beat anybody, as Wednesday night in Paris showed. That if we get the team together and they get it's all in the right mind, that we can have a go at anybody. And here we were giving the European champions a run for their money. And then 3 days later at Liverpool, up to 40 minutes, we were better than them. They couldn't handle us. And then suddenly, we fold like a pack of cards. And that's not the first time. The first goal goes in and heads seem to go down. And in the same way, the number of games were this season, if we had won games, which we should have done, in the league now, we'd be kicking around the top 2, never mind in the middle of the bloody league. So yeah, I understand your frustration and some anger, and I certainly have expressed my disappointment at what's happened recently. The other thing is that I suppose I make a lot of other people. I give Eddie Howe credit for all sorts of things, but the big one for me is when he came in. Remember where we were. We were a solid bet for relegation, and then we went on a run and stayed up. But then he produced great players out of players that Bruce wouldn't even play. Joe Linton was bought as a very expensive number 9, and we ever heard that before. And he was nothing like. He was awful. He had Eddie Howe's turned him into something of a midfield giant. You know, people are actually scared of Joe Linton, and that's fantastic. And other players who Bruce wouldn't play, like Sean, the Longstaffs, and became good players. And one or two younger ones came through, like Elliot Anderson and so on. And then we saw the input from the first input from the PSR thing, that Elliot Anderson had to be sacrificed almost along with others. So, yeah, I can understand your frustration and some little anger, because I feel quite the same, particularly this season. It's last season we recovered and we went on a run and ended the season on a high. I'd like to think we can do that again, but I wouldn't put me money on it. Not the way they've performed this season. And as regards the transfer issues, people talking about Tonali. Well, you know, the papers are full of Livramento going to Manchester City. And if I was in charge of a football club at the moment and needed a left back, I'd be in for Lewis Hall. I hope they've got a contract ready for that lad, because if they haven't, he'll disappear as well. So it could be a horrendous summer if they don't get all their eggs in the right basket. And so I understand your frustration, Stephen, very much, and I share it in some ways.
As always, John sent us a load of questions. I'll get into one. George, you're clearly passionate about the two and very positive generally, but in light of some lacklustre performances this season and another transfer window shocker, has some of the wind been taken out of your sails?
Well, yes. I mean, my enthusiasm for the club never changes. You know, it's the old standard. You cut me arm, I bleed black and white. Well, that's true. Or it's like Blackpool Rock, and in the middle of it, it's got Newcastle United. And it's the inconsistency that's frustrating. As I say, on that day, this lot can excite, can thrill, can, you know, the night against Paris Saint-Germain is one of the best nights I've had at St James's Park, when we beat them 4-1, and other nights like that. Even this season against Eindhoven the other night, they came thinking that they were going to get a win, and we took the wind out of their sails. Well, why, a couple of days later against Aston Villa, do we look like second raters? We really let Aston Villa off the hook. It was ridiculous. And if you study football at all, the one thing I could tell you about Aston Villa is, in terms of goals scored outside the penalty area, they're the top in the league. And what did we do? We left their most dangerous midfielder on his own 30 yards from goal, so he could take a swipe at any part of the goal he could pick. And that's what he did. And you couldn't blame Hope for it, because it was just a fantastic shot. If it was a one-off, you'd say, well, one of those things. But it wasn't. It's what they're noted for. Now, if I know that, why don't our coaching staff know that and set the team up to counteract that and do that? So it's the inconsistency and the same story from Eddie sometimes, which you know, even against Liverpool, his post-match conference was slightly bizarre in some ways, saying that, well, they didn't do that badly, it was individual mistakes. Yes, it was, Eddie, but that's your job's to iron out those individual mistakes, I'm afraid. And why Saturday and not a few days before in Paris? So it's all very frustrating, as much as anything. So yeah. They need to have a turnaround fairly soon, both on and off the pitch. But at the end of the day, I think you know, I was positive enough to see us in the top 4 this year. The answer is, if we'd won matches we should have won, we'd be kicking around the top 2, never mind the top 4. and the frustration as well as other teams were losing. City were losing, Villa were losing. Would have been right amongst it. So yeah, it's difficult to be positive when you see things that seem blatantly obvious to me, that where the changes could come, but nothing happens. It's same old, same old.
Okay, halfway through the show, time for the ads. A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at their website, skipsandbins.com, or contact them, www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. A big thanks to United Group Travel, our fanzine sponsor. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. 2-crew driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels and no interchanges. Hot and cold snacks and drinks available on the coach. All excursions included. Their website, www.unitedgrouptravel.com. Email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com. Or telephone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. Deposits from £50 per person. A big thanks to Media Arts. Their website, www.media-arts.co.uk. Email info@media-arts.co.uk or telephone 0191 637 5061. If you want to help support the channel, then you can click the subscribe button. We still do 7 shows a week. It is free. Hit the thumb up to like the video and click share to share to your social media. A big thanks to Sports Social Podcast Network. You can listen to us on the road, on this network, or by tuning into iTunes, Spotify, or other podcast providers. You can also join the channel by hitting the join button on YouTube or go to our website, nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk. You can pay a one-off fee of £25 and you'll receive a membership card, a beer mat, a fridge magnet, a key ring, a badge and a pen. £25, nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk. Okay, welcome back. Lots of questions coming in. I'll try and get through as many as I can. GRWS says, question for George. Does he believe the departure of Amanda Mirdad has fundamentally changed the way we do recruitment? We just haven't seemed to get the direction or structure off the pitch right. And his second question, when Mitchell was here, he came out and said we needed to move to a data-driven model, similar to Brighton, to unearth gems and then sell at a high profit. Where is this strategy?
Yeah, well, the Amanda and Mirdad issue has been an ongoing one for me. They always, in fairness to them, said that they wouldn't be around too long and they would move on because they had other things to do. I've got no issue with that, and they did their job, they did their work to get the takeover through, but we did nothing about replacing them. We ended up, as I say, with a new CEO who seemed to think that singing Bladen Races in the stack was the best way to communicate with the fans. Whereas Amanda was up front when you can remember the things that she did, and Mirdad. And who's going to forget how they sorted out the golf, the live golf against the American golf, and they sorted that out. So if they can do that, what could they do for Newcastle United? Joe Linton's contract was stolen in all sorts of directions, and once Amanda got involved, apparently in a couple of weeks it was sorted. And there's other things like the Anthony Gordon thing. We wanted him from Everton, and Everton started to play hardball. So Amanda said, "Well, 45 million, take it or leave it," and walked away. And the next thing we do, that he was signing. So, yeah, I think, and the fact that she let that be known publicly for fans was great. We don't get to see anything like that at all, and there doesn't seem to be a voice close to the boardroom in the way in which Amanda and Mia Dad were, and that's a frustration for me as well. So yes, we do miss them greatly, more than I think people imagine. Certainly I do. And as regards Mitchell and his database thing, well, that's a bit of a laugh because way back, not too far back, we had a manager called Rafa Benitez who had his own data system for players, and every player Rafa had a file, statistics about them all, and he knew what was good. I'm not letting any tales out of school, but Steve, you'll remember when Steve Hasty and I spent an afternoon almost after a match with against Brighton with Rafa talking football, and some of his insights into what was needed, and I think it was Steve asked him the question about at the time, was John Joe Shelby going to be his captain? And he immediately said, when he starts to do what he's told, he'll be captain. It's straight out. So, that was all tipped in the bin when Steve Bruce walked in, of course. But, you can't help but agree with Mitchell. There is a modern system around, and it's, in fact, it's been perfected by Brighton so well. It's nearly off the shelf now, in what they use, and clearly it works. Anybody looking at the ex-Brighton players in the Premiership now playing for Chelsea and others can only think, well, my goodness, why not? And some of them we tried to buy. Look at João Pedro for Chelsea last night. They're all, he's one of many who we've expressed interest in, and came to them as almost unknown. So yeah, we need to have a think about that. I don't know what Ross Wilson. I don't know enough about him to know what systems he uses, but I'd be very disappointed if he hasn't got some sort of system to help him to bring players in who are going to progress at Newcastle United, and not just come in and warm the bench, which is unfortunately sometimes the feeling you get occasionally with buys.
Tom wants to know, with Jamal Lascelles leaving Newcastle, what did you think of him when he was a Newcastle player?
He was, I think, underrated in terms of his talent. Rafa was actually pushing for him for the England squad before Rafa disappeared. And the important thing for me was his tenacity, his courage. When you needed Jamal, he was there. When we were in the promotion season, when we were struggling, it was Jamal who headed a goal in the corner towards the end of the match to get us through the game. He was always there to stick up for his mates. To give a 22-year-old a captaincy, Rafa must have had a lot of confidence in him. And when you hear the sort of things he did, it's not surprising. Apparently after that awful 5-1 defeat at Leyton Orient in a pre-season friendly, which is what I think sold Rafa, he made them lock the door. And he had a go at some of the what he called mercenaries in the squad, like Alan Smith, and people who seem to be sitting around for big money and not actually producing anything. And he had a go at them all. And I think that's what turned him into Rafa's captain. And from then on, he's been a good club captain. You look at the way that some of the others that have been there, like Trippier and Bruno, they respect Lascelles as the club captain. So I think my heartfelt thanks to Jamal Lascelles is for the effort he put into the club and the big heart he had for the club, and he got the Geordie Geordie vibe. He was the one who you know, if some of the players were in trouble downtown, Jamal wouldn't hesitate jumping in his car and going down to try and help them. You know, I've heard stories like that before. So he gave a lot to Newcastle United, and his almost courage and tenacity will be a miss, I think, because he's given so much. So I'm sad to see him go, but he's got to move on, and we've got to move on. But he gave a lot to the club, a real captain.
Okay, yeah, Toonami says, absolutely gutted John Virgo has died, such a legend, and 3 weeks ago was the last time we heard his famous catchphrase, "Where's the cue ball going?" Yeah, he's certainly made his mark, John Virgo, thoughts with his family. John says, have you noticed no one's mentioned tonight's semi-final yet? I wonder why. Yes, we have got a big game. Rob wants to hear your positivity ahead of the Man City game, George.
Well, my positivity comes out of being positive about the old cup runs and the Fairs Cup run, and that is pride. I hope tonight that whoever goes on that pitch wearing the shirt will remember it's our cup and not let it go easily. So, you know, bring out your pride and do what you did in Paris the other night. City are beatable. This Manchester City are beatable, as other teams have shown recently. So don't lie down and let them have the trip to the final for free. Bring your pride out and show the pride that we share with Newcastle United, because it's important. It makes such a difference to all of us, not just the supporters, but to the city and in the area generally. I'll sorry to digress, but I'll give you a Keegan story. While Keegan was our manager, you know, the entertainers, etc., I was an admissions tutor in the university in a department, and we used to get if I needed 50 students to fill my course, so I used to get 400 to 500 applications, and that was a good year for me. When Keegan came, after his second year, when it looked like the entertainers were going to do things, I was getting nearly 2,000 applications. The university thought I'd gone mad. They were asking me, what you done? You know what? I've done nothing. It's Kevin Keegan that's done it, because people want to come and see Newcastle, you know, from all over the country who are getting application, from all over the world, in fact. And that hasn't altered. I don't do much traveling now at my age, but occasionally as a consultant I do, but that's rare. But in you know, up to 15 years ago or whatever, if I went abroad on a job, I guarantee the first thing most people, whether it was Singapore particularly, for example, if I went into Sambayang shipyard or one of the other vessels in Singapore, I'd have to talk about Newcastle United before I could talk business. How's this? How's that? How they do, and all the rest of it. And it stays. And same in Greece. I still have many friends in Greece who I see. I occasionally go and have holidays with at their homes. A lot of the conversations about Newcastle United. So you know, pride. Get that pride. Should put their hearts on their shirts. Never mind the badge. And we could turn Manchester City over tonight.
Well, there it is. There's the positivity, as you would expect from George. Shane Smith still going on about the interview. He's saying that Hopkinson wants us to be in the top in 5 years. Absolute waffle. He's not convinced. Shane also says, with all your wisdom, having seen all the scenarios over the years as a fan, where does our current predicament sit in comparison to all the past storms we have weathered, George?
In that sense, I'm still optimistic, bearing in mind where we came from, how low we started at the start of this journey. Relegation certs 4 years ago. There was no doubt about that. Everybody and anybody and their dog was saying, well, Newcastle will never recover from that. Well, not only did we recover, we went on a journey and we've won our first trophy. I mean, and 3 times in semi-finals to the Carabao Cup, all of that, and another final as well. So there's there's much to be positive about. What's disappointing is the way it seems to have stalled, where we seem to have got stuck, and we need to do something about that. But I'm it's still miles ahead of some of the dross that we had when some of the managers nearly killed us. Jackie Charlton, for example, and can you imagine a manager who played hell with Peter Beardsley for crossing a ball? It's just ridiculous. One of the finest players ever to grace the St James's turf, and his manager didn't want him playing the football he knows how to play. Well, you just laugh at that now, and others as well. The rubbish that you used to get off. We got off Gordon Lean and then Richard Dennis. Oh dear me, that was. No, don't give us that again. I'll put up with what we've got at the moment. I don't want to go back to that. But my positivity is still there. But as I say, I'm just frustrated, like so many of you are, that we seem to have come to a standstill, and we need to move forward. I mean, we've got some brilliant players, and again, I go back to what I say: the right Newcastle United turns up, we can beat anybody, as we showed in Paris. And for the first half in Liverpool, I would add. But we need to be able to replicate that when it's teams that we should beat, and we don't seem to do that at the moment. And that's very, very frustrating. And that's got to be more than just the players, I've got to say. There's got to be an issue around, Eddie and his team preparing them and so on. So, but as I say, that hasn't killed me positively in terms of Newcastle United. But don't want to go back to some of the dross that we've had in the past.
Jeff's in the chat with his usual non-football related questions. Can you ride a horse, George?
Yes. Well, not at the moment. I can hardly walk across my living room, never mind ride a bloody horse. But in days gone by, yes, I fortunate to have friends when Marge and I lived in Leighton, and we lived near a farm, and we became friends with the farmer because his kids were in the Cub Scouts and Margie was the Arcala, and I got to know him very well. And sometimes on a Sunday morning, just as get some fresh air, I'd go up and go riding with him, and it was quite nice, quite releasing. I'd often wondered what people get out of riding, and then I discovered it was lovely to have an animal beneath you that you could trust, and it trusted you, and give you some excitement as well. And by the time we finished, I was able to do the odd jump, which was really exhilarating. So yes, Jeff, I've ridden a horse.
Rob wants to know, he says, here's the question I wanted to ask Peter Beardsley. If you could take one player from the 84 team and put them in the Entertainers team, one from the 90s into the 80s, who would you pick? Mine would be Chris Waddle, he says, in the Entertainers.
Yeah, that's a good one. Chrissy Waddle's hard to beat, actually, because he had a bit of everything when he was on form. So I'd agree with Chrissy Waddle. Yes, that's not a bad shout.
Okay. Another question from Jeff. What was your favourite radio comedy?
The Goons. The Goons, Jeff. I'm sure that rings bells with you. Some of your fans' forum contributions could fall in line with the Goon Show. Sorry,
you're not wrong. No, you're not wrong. I'll agree with you. Gary says, George, have we been overachieving in the last season or so? And this season has shown where we are at, lacking due to fixture congestion and injuries.
I think part of it, but there's another part of it as well that I think maybe I've just, my thoughts aren't very, very good on this, but I think would be Eddie's been found out, and that managers like Unai Emery and one or two others, Pep Guardiola and to a lesser extent Arteta, have found out, and so they're prepared for it now. Where first couple of years we were an unknown, we could surprise them. I don't think there's any surprises now with us. They know who we are and what we're about, and they're all and prepared for us better than they did before. So I think it's a number of things, but I think the last one for me is that Eddie's been found out. We've been found out as a team. We don't have many surprises left now, so it's down to the team being able to produce it on the day.
Toonami says, George, if Hopkinson and PIF decided to put Newcastle on the New York Stock Exchange to help with revenue, would it work?
Good question. I think it would probably get something out of it, but how much is debatable. I don't think it's done that much for Manchester United, for example. They're 2 billion in debt now. So no, it'd be interesting to look at it, but I don't think it would do much for us, to be perfectly honest.
Okay. George, considering some say we don't have a lot of depth, although it is better, should the club manager have made a decision to focus on specific targets this season instead of trying to compete on all fronts?
Well, you're asking the greedy little duck who wants everything. We're in 4 competitions still at the moment, and I'm not a great lover of targeting one thing or another. It doesn't always work. Ask Arteta. He's got a team that's I reckon that he doesn't start winning something soon, he's going to be looking for a job, and that's because he targeted European stuff at the expense of domestic stuff, and it didn't pay off. So no, I think rather than targeting specific things, it's about managing the resources you've got and in the best you can. And in a little way, he did that. I mean, in the early rounds of Carabao, he switched the team quite a bit, and let people like Jacob Ramsey and Ramsdale and others come into the team. So, but you're asking the wrong person. I'm the greedy little duck. I want it all.
Okay. Serious question by George from Derek. Do you think Eddie will survive with this fan base?
Oh, it depends on it's a results based game, Derek, and Eddie will live or die on the results at the end of the season, depending where we are. If we get near a trophy, bear in mind we're in a semi-final tonight. If you look at what we've done since the takeover under Eddie's stewardship, you've got to be a harsh judge to say it's all bad, because it isn't. We 3 semi-finals, a cup win, and all of that. So he's got lots of money in the bank. But if we were to end the season, not winning anything or no European football, I think serious questions would be asked. One or two people on social media recently been saying, is the fact that we didn't spend money in this window a reflection on how PIF view Eddie Howe? Well, it could be. So it's a results-based business. Eddie will survive if the results are right.
Okay. Stephen wants to know, do you think our long-term recruitment plans were given to our competitors by former employees, and the potential incomers are thinking twice now due to our PSR hindering?
Oh, I think there's no doubt about it. If Newcastle United want to dig deep enough, they would find some very embarrassing emails from our former employee rather, and and there's no question that people in other clubs, e.g. Liverpool particularly, were being fed information about who we were looking at, and that had to come from somewhere. And it looks a bit suspicious. If I was, if you dug really deep, I'd suspect that somebody was giving information away.
Okay, the fan base that booed Sir Bobby and argued with KK on the steps of St James's Park, says Mozza. Mark Douglas via the eye seems to think that the confidence in Eddie is total from the club, which is interesting, so we'll see. JJ says, George, do you think Premier League clubs should work with TV to allow club season tickets, say £500 per household for all Newcastle games?
Wow, that's an interesting one. I think there's merit in that. Go back to Moza. She's absolutely right. We go through these phases, don't we? That once certain group get fed up and have a go, like you say, the booed Sir Bobby. And I can remember, as I've no doubt you do, Steve, Kevin Keegan standing on the steps arguing with the fans about him selling Andy Cole. And within a few weeks, of course, we had Alan Shearer. It's very, very open to conjecture, to debate about that. But look, if we went to win everything tomorrow, you still could find somebody who wants to complain about something. It's as fickle as that, I'm afraid, for some people. I get amazed sometimes at how when I listen to people doing a negative thing about Newcastle United, about how we haven't done this and how we've lost that and we haven't won this and such, and I think, well, what the hell do you go to the game for? If it makes you that miserable, stay at home. I'm not going to, if it made us that, but even when in the darkest days, when we nearly went into the bloody old third division, I remember still going to the match and thinking, well, this is my day out. This is with my team, and it's big, and traveling all over the country, and seeing we're getting turned over by nondescript teams. But the day out with the lads and to the match, the occasion was still an important part of my life. So, yes, I get disappointed, but I was never, ever going to turn off in a way in which would make me go to St James's Park and boo Bobby Robson off, argue with Kevin Keegan. I just wanted what was best for the team, and both of those two gave us the best eventually.
Great stuff. Where does the hour go? Thanks to everybody for their questions. Back tomorrow, 6 o'clock with Gibbo and Supermac. George, thanks very much.
Well, thank you all as well. It's a treat to talk football with people. And I've got to say, I'm very conscious that when I come on here, that some of the people asking the questions are obviously very knowledgeable, and I appreciate that. So thank you for that. It's a good mix, to have non-football questions as well, especially the one from Jeff. Thanks, care, everybody. George. Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.